Let's talk fantasy basketball waiver wire. Must adds, most added, players to drop, all of that stuff. It's coming up. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I just threw a 9 data. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. You can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Are you a double banger? It's a good idea. You can listen to the audio, you can watch the video, you do both of those things. You hit the thumbs up on the video, you subscribe, notification bell, comments, and you get ready for the trade deadline under 2 weeks to go. February the 8th, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go pre-bang that video. Let's hit 1,000 pre-bangs and pre-likes over there and on the video. Let's talk waiver wire because we've got stuff that we need to pay attention to as always. So let's have a look at some of the must roster cats. I know I'm such a cool dude that I call people cats. No, the must roster players in category leagues, and today's list is a little bit shorter than it usually is. Just because, again, I'm not going to stretch it out and give you 6 fake names or anything like that. There are 4 guys who are sitting there under my roster cutoff of 57% that I do think should be on a roster. Number 1 on that list is the Duck, Luke Kennard. Yes, I think there's going to be frustrations with him in back-to-backs and sitting with his knee. I think that's going to be a problem. But in the games that he does play, the production's good enough that I just think he needs to be on your roster. And if you're dealing with an IL plus scenario, you just slot him into that and deal with it. I think he's just got real value here. The next one I look at is the big ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, and his teammate, Josh the Hitman Hart. DiVincenzo was already in a pretty good spot and was probably a must-roster guy anyway. Hart was not. But things change, don't they? Because Julius Randle has suffered a dislocated shoulder. We still, at this point, don't have a timeline on it, and that timeline could be anything. It really depends on a number of things. Obviously, Woj gave us that tweet without any context about, the x-ray shows there's no damage. Like, yes, no shit. An x-ray only shows that there's bone damage or a break or a fracture, and that's not what usually happens in a shoulder dislocation. So, to me, that tells us nothing, right? What you need to see is what happens with the ligaments and the tendons, because you dislocate your shoulder, obviously it pulls out of the joint, meaning that the tendons get stretched, the ligaments get stretched. How much they get stretched or torn is what the real problem is. Some people have shoulders where they can pop out and they pop back in. There's limited damage because of elasticity around the joint and you're out a week. Some people have that and it's like full tears through the ligaments and it's 4 months. It's surgery. So I don't know. I guess people were asking, could it be like a Ja Morant type labral situation, labral tear? Could be, but there's so many other different things that it could be as well in terms of the ligaments around there. It's going to be sore, it's going to be loose. He didn't obviously look in a great way, and honestly, that's hard to judge. But when someone does see their shoulder pop out with a dislocation, when they're in that much pain, it does usually indicate a level of ligament damage. If it's just one of those ones that pops out and pops back in, there's a little bit of pain, but it's not to that level usually. But who knows? Who knows? So we'll find out there. The average games missed is probably, I think Jeff Stotts' database had it at about 30 days. So you're talking a bit over a month. And you get, but sometimes it's 10 days, sometimes it's 70 days. It's all over the shop. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that it's not going to be 3 days out here for Randall. It's going to be probably 2 weeks at least. Push that through to maybe the All-Star break, and then the worst case scenario is it's season over. But we don't know. But what we do know is that in Randall's absence, this team has no power forwards, unless you want to rely upon Jacob Toppin. And I know that Tom Thibodeau does not want to rely on Jacob Toppin. So what they'll have to do is start OG Anunoby at the 4. And then again, absolutely no backup. They'll have to start Josh Hart at the 3. And there's also no backup there as well. So OG might be playing 39 minutes a night. Hart might be playing 39 minutes a night. You'll get DiVincenzo pushing up to 3. And they might actually have to play the big sneeze at the 4 as well, even though he's played 0 minutes at the 4 for the Knicks this season. The guys that and that doesn't even take into consideration where the hell the usage from Julius Randle goes. The playmaking. Like, it's going to go to DiVincenzo. It's going to go to the other guys who are rostered as well, but Dante's going to step up into a large role. So he's just a very clear must-add player. Josh Hart is a very clear must-add player. And then we figure out what happens with Randle later on. We don't wait for a diagnosis. We don't wait for Randle's going to be out 7 weeks. And then I'm sure people go, well, who do I add now that Randle's out? No, you make the move now. You don't worry about that shit. You don't worry about if it's going to be a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. There's no point. And if you're in a league, and I don't like to say this competitive versus non-competitive, if you're in a competitive league, these options are done. They're probably finished already. They might not be, but they're probably finished already. And you just got to be on top of it. You can't wait for a time frame on a diagnosis. In most cases. Jeremy Sohan is the other guy on that list. When Trey Jones plays, he does seem to be much better. I love what he's doing at the moment. He's shooting much better. He's putting up more usage. He's scoring. He's doing things right across the board. And I just don't think that's a controversial call to say he's a must-roster player. For points leagues, a lot of similar names here. DiVincenzo, Hart, Sohan on that list. I've got Markelle Fultz on that list as well for a points league. He's efficiency issues are more of a problem in category leagues, but in points leagues, I think it's okay. I think he's okay. I think he's probably a must roster for categories. Obviously, last game was not particularly strong from Fultz. We'll see what happens in Sunday's action, but I think he's a guy to roster. And the other guy there is Karis LeVert, who to me is probably droppable in a category format, but in a points league format, I would be holding on to him. We'll reassess it whenever Darius Garland returns, whenever that is. But for now, I do think that Karis LeVert should be rostered in a points league format. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. Because there are over 122 million parts that you can find on eBay, and I'm sure that some of those are going to fit your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all these parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to US customers. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The Super Bowl is very, very close, and I'm recording this before the championship games. So I don't know who's in it, but what I do know is you're going to celebrate the Super Bowl, and you can do that with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. On Super Bowl Sunday, we're all trying to get our spot on the couch, get our snacks ready, the game on the screen, and FanDuel open to have a look at placing some super bets. All right, FanDuel has many ways for you to end the season with a W or two or three. What do you think is the best way to do it? Do you look at who you just think is going to win the game outright? Do you try to get first score, anytime touchdown scorer? Do you look for player props at the Super Bowl? Whatever it is you're looking to do in terms of betting on the Super Bowl, FanDuel is going to have those options available to you. New customers, you join today and you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let's move into the next part. We've done the must roster players. Let's look at some droppable players.
Get that garbage out of here.
You guys want a quick definition? What do I mean? You don't have to drop the players. They're just, if they're on your roster and you're sitting there going, what do I need to do? I'm in a 10-team, a 12-team league. Do I need to hold on to this guy? My opinion is going to be probably not. You can. You don't have to. That's part of how this works. Number one on this list is the horse, Keldon Johnson. It has been relatively rough from Keldon. Now, again, you might say, well, Josh, he just had 2 steals, 2 blocks, and played 28 minutes last game. That's true. But, cool. That is a one-game thing. It's very up and down. It's all about looking at the overall longer-term body of work of these players. And I just don't think that Keldon needs to be on your roster. Like, some bloke left a comment on the video, which people do all the time, and they love to snipe and love to have comments, and people love to give praise, which I also, are willing to accept too. Oh, how can this dickhead tell us to drop Cam Thomas? Well, because he was like the 280th best player for a period of about 10 weeks in a row. So I reckon dropping Cam Thomas was probably the right call during that time. And that's what can happen. Players can have hot streaks and cold streaks, and it's about trying to get ahead of it and figure out where things are heading. And that's with Keldon. It's heading not very well. I don't think he's going to move back into a 33-minute-a-night starting role. And the way that he plays the game doesn't really always translate well to category league. So I just don't think he needs to be held on to. Dennis Schroeder, the same thing. We've got Emmanuel quickly out, and they're still not starting him. That is a terrible sign. They're going to play him 23 minutes a night, I think, most nights. And yeah, maybe he's traded somewhere, but into what role? Onto what team? And his upside I don't think is that high. Isaiah Stewart, I don't think is a must-roster player. He's totally okay to have if you want. He's going to start because this organization is full of absolute clowns and dickheads. But does he do enough? Does he play 33 a night or is it 28 a night? Like, no, it's more 28. And it's just not a guy that you have to hold on to. Will it burn you if you drop him? Probably not. I've got Spencer Dinwiddie, the same thing. Now, he can burn you for a 3-game period, and then he has 30 minutes with 1 point on 10% shooting, or he plays 18 minutes, and there might even be Ben Simmons back next game. And I'm telling you now that the Cam Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie backcourt combination is not something that works long term. So I just don't think there's any point in holding on to Dinwiddie. I've got Jaden Ivey on this list as well. Ivy, I thought, was a really strong guy to grab while Cade was out. Cade is back, outside of the debacle about injury reporting today, but Cade is back. And again, I would be totally reasonable to hold on to Jaden Ivey. See what happens, see how Monty uses him. Poorly will be the answer, but see how Monty uses him. But if you need to create that open roster spot, if you go, man, I probably should just grab DiVincenzo, or I need to grab Josh Hart, and Jaden Ivey is on your roster, the worst guy, drop him, who cares? You move on, you get the next guy, and you move on, you get the next guy, then you move on, you get the next guy. And that's the same with Zach Collins. Wembanyama's not even scheduled to sit back-to-backs anymore. Collins is an 18 to 20-minute-a-night backup. Wemby's up to 30 minutes a night. I think that might go higher. There is just no... And Collins isn't even playing well. There is zero reason to hold on to Zach Collins.
Get that garbage out of here!
Thank you, John Armstrong. For points leagues, a lot of the names are similar. Dennis Schroeder is at the top of that list. I've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has not been a 12-team points league guy all season. I don't even think he's a 12-team category league guy. He just didn't fit into my list of other players. I've got Jaime Jaquez on there as well. First game back, it's hard to completely judge Jaquez in that first game back for the Heat where he played 23 minutes, but there's just a few too many other guys there. They started Haywood Highsmith, and he hasn't been a very good points league player anyway. So despite the hype of Jaquez, which has died down, I just don't think that there's any need to have him on a 12-team points league roster. The same goes with Herbalife Jones. I don't even think he's a category league must-hold player, but he's got more value in that format. His numbers are all over the place. There's too much competition for minutes. There's a blowout that they deliver or someone delivers onto them every second game. There's no point. I've got Isaiah Stewart there. I've also got Bruce Brown there, who is a probably 30 to 40 spot worse points league player than category league player. So in a category league, you could decide to hold him, especially while Quickly is out, or there's the specter of a trade. But yeah, if he ends up with the Knicks, how does that help them in a Randall injury? Probably doesn't at all. But Brown can at least be a top 100 category league player if he's traded into the right spot. I just don't think that's happening in a points league. So again, if I need to create that open roster spot, moving on from him, I think is like completely reasonable. I just don't think it's necessary. And again, especially in that points league format. We're at the most added players. Over the last 48 hours, we'll look at my data at Basketball Monster. We'll look at Yahoo's most added players. The most added player, who was the man that just transitioned there on that screen, was Santi Aldama, up 27%. They are prioritizing Santi over Xavier Tillman for now. But honestly, that prioritization has changed 5 times this season already. Chuck in the times they've prioritized David Roddy over Santi Aldama, and you'll never get an idea of what the Grizzlies are going to do. And every time you think you've got an idea of what their pattern is, they change it up. So while we look at it and go, well, they're going with Aldama and Jackson, they are, for now. And we've said that 4 times already this season because they just keep changing it. So Santi's okay to add. I don't believe that he's a must-add, high-upside player. He might have a run, best case, top 80, best case, but it'll be short-term. He's bad field goal, bad free throws, low defensive stats, low assists, doesn't play huge minutes, not high usage. But I also don't mind adding him. Always talking back end of the roster, a guy that is trending up a little bit. There's a little bit of value there for Santi. Go and do it. That's okay. But understand that there is nothing locked in with the way that his role is, I don't think, in Memphis. Ayo Dosunmu, one of the most added players who, again, I have been critical in the past because he wasn't good. Simple as that. I said that he was not good at fantasy because he was not good at fantasy. And Now, he is playing well, and his fantasy game has improved. He's more aggressive. His usage is up. So therefore, we change our opinion when more information comes in, and that's where we're at with Dosunmu. At the moment, with Levine out, and now Patrick Williams is out today as well, he's playing well. So try him out. Let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens. Andrew Nembhard up 26%. Looks like Halliburton might be back next week. McConnell's out for personal reasons. Nembhard is a grab. The Pacers continually seem to have the highest or best schedule. Every time frame you look at, it's always Pacers with the best schedule. Nembhard, I don't think is going to have any value when Halliburton returns, but a short-term ad, no worries. Thad Young, up almost 7,000 ads. That's with Jonte Porter dealing with an eye thing, and Jakob Poeltl out. That is just a short-term stream, nothing more there. And then two more Pacers, Aaron Nesmith and Obi Toppin. They've got this weird spot, the Pacers, and I've said this a lot, that their schedule is so good. There's so many games jam-packed. They seem to always fall on the right days, and they've got like 7 streamable guys on their roster at any point. Toppin's not someone I want to believe in a huge amount, but Miles Turner's out today, so that helps him. Aaron Nesmith's been on a hot streak, then a cold streak, now another hot streak. I would definitely have Nesmith over Toppin, but they're all streamable. And Heald and Mathurin and Nembhard and bloody Jalen Smith and sometimes Isaiah Jackson, who's probably going to have good value in today's game as well. But that's sort of where they're at. Just so many different options you can chuck out there.
Get that garbage out of here.
What about the most dropped players? Who has been turfed? Number 1 is Sam Merrill. This is what we do. He was the guy I think that was on the most added players on Thursday's show for the waiver wire, Wednesday's show. And now he's on the most dropped players because he was on a hot streak. He cooled off. His minutes dropped down. And now we drop him. That's how it works. So yeah, move on from Sam Merrill. Okay, totally okay. Trey Murphy down 19%. Yeah, I've been saying this for about 3 weeks, I think, that I just don't think we need to hold him. Sure, an injury can happen at any point. Zion could go out, Ingram could go out, Herb could go out, and he plays 30 minutes a night, and he rolls, and he's back into the top 100. That is totally reasonable. I could probably name 40 blokes in the NBA that if someone ahead of them got injured, you could get a top 90 run out of them, but I'm not holding on to them waiting for that. Murphy had the fake DMP yesterday, which is absolutely embarrassing from the Pelicans to do that. It was a back-to-back. We knew he wasn't playing, and they didn't put him on the injury report, and then they didn't play him. The NBA is... I back the players a lot. I back the NBA with a lot of things, so I think so much criticism is disingenuous. This shit is bullshit. Like, this is absolute... Their injury reporting, and I've always been on that side, is ridiculously embarrassing. It's been embarrassing for years, and it opens them up to criticism in so many areas. I could sidebar for this for so long, that where organizations, people, whatever it is, do the dumbest shit that opens them up to absolutely disingenuous criticisms on other areas, where all they need to do is make this one thing ironclad it and make it make sense, and then none of the other arguments carry any water or any weight at all. But they don't do it. This injury stuff is so basic to do. So basic. Yet the NBA lets teams get away with this shit for years and years and years. So it's just a complete joke the whole way through. And that is what the problem is. It's not about players being soft and all. It's about the teams and the manipulation of an injury report and the NBA not caring about it. That's the problem. That is the big problem, I think. Anyway, Trey Murphy, yeah, jack him. Xavier Tillman down 18%. Look, at some point, he might start and play 30 minutes. I don't care. I'm not waiting for it. When he started and played 30 minutes, I added him. He was a guy to use. We loved what we saw. Then, out of nowhere, he was on the bench playing 18 minutes and we jack him. Simple stuff. Larry Nance been dropped. Not sure I would have been that aggressive on dropping Nance. He's been pretty solid, but the problem again with the Pelicans is there's bloody just blowouts every 5 seconds. So, in those games, he plays like 19 minutes. He keeps starting the second half, which is a weird thing to keep doing, but they keep doing it. I would have held on more there. Al Horford dropped. Okay. That Celtics game was a blowout against the Clippers. His minutes were low. We don't know if Porzingis plays the next game. I don't know if I would have been that quick to drop Horford. Whatever. And then Dario Saric dropped. Yeah, cool. Like, lost his starting spot. Minutes were down. Very, very, very easy jack. Very easy jack. Today's episode is also brought to you by Quiz. Yes, that is Quiz with 3 I's, the next generation trivia experience. It's also the world's first platform where you can earn money playing knowledge games. And given the NBA questions on here, I reckon you guys could do pretty well. So for all Locked On fans and NBA fans, there is an NBA quiz game where you can test your knowledge and win real cash. You play with friends and other fans and you let your knowledge shine all the way to the bank, and you can play without downloading anything. Go to app.quiz.com and start playing today. NBA quiz. It's the ultimate knowledge challenge for fans that live and breathe basketball. Again, if I look at some of the questions, like you guys are going to smash these questions out. They're not that hard. Which player, or maybe this one, which player holds the record for most points scored in a single game for the Nuggets? Is it Carmelo Anthony? No. Nikola Jokic? Also no. Is it Joffrey Laverne? Sadly no. It's David Thompson. Yeah. A lot of you would have known that, but some of you wouldn't have. But you can check all of that out over at Quiz. So go to app.quiz.com to test your knowledge and win some cash today. That is Quiz with 3 eyes, just like a 3-pointer. Play now, showcase your skills, and take home cash prizes. App.quiz.com, where fans become champions. All right, look at the most dropped players. So what are we going to look at now? What is the next segment? It is the hot players. Who are the guys who are in the top 100 per game over the last week? Well, I'll tell you, because it's a good time. The highest ranked player who's available in over 50% of leagues is the pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. It's 3 unbelievably good games in a row. And again, you'll say, Josh, like you said to drop him. I know, because he was ranked 250th for 13 weeks. And he's been bad at fantasy for 3+ years. But this is an unbelievable hot streak. So, what can we do? Can we stream him in? Buddy, of course you can. Do we expect it to last? Absolutely not. And you'll notice one thing that's happening with the Kings. Barnes, minutes way up. Herter, minutes way up. Monk, minutes way down. So if they lean back into Monk, those other two are going to get nerfed. But at the moment, it's a Herter Barnes show, which is not a show that I want to watch, but it is a show that's happening. So you can go and lean into Barnes and stream him in. Big Dick Nick Richards, still, what a shock that is. He's a top 100 player. His roster percentage over the last week has jumped 9 percentage points. Don't know what happened. Why did you guys wait 6 months to do this? Not 6 months, but long enough. But people are catching on. He's finally gone above 40%. This is one that I'm interested in, Jared Vanderbilt bar. Minutes restriction is done. He played 40 minutes in that overtime game yesterday. He's rebounds, he's got steals, he's got field goal percentage. We talked about this Thursday, I think, saying, look, I'm not sure that there's gigantic upside there, but I'd add in all 14 and we'd consider a stream and see where it goes. Well, I think we just add him now and see what happens. He's playing really well. Andrew Nembhard, we just talked about him. It's not going to last long term. Grant Williams, he's top 100 on the back of that ridiculous game yesterday. I am absolutely not reacting to that. And then Paul Reed, who the frustration with Paul Reed is so palpable. You know that I was like, hey, let's grab him last couple of rounds of the draft because Nick Nurse is going to play with Embiid. He needs 25 minutes to dominate. And then, of course, he played 0 minutes next to Embiid all season. And then Embiid went out, and then Reed only played 24 minutes. They start Marcus Morris. I go, what is this self-branded dickhead talking about Nick Nurse? What are you on about? And then yesterday they went, screw it. 42 minutes for Paul Reed. And he dominated. He dominated. And now he's in the top 100. And you still don't need to roster him. I mean, you can. You can see whether Embiid plays on Monday. But even if there's games where Embiid might be limited, or the Sixers have like a 3 and 4 or a 4 in 6 nights, getting Reed with 70 minutes played or 60 minutes played across 4 games that are all quality games, he actually produces. It's not like what are these fantasy analysts sucking this bloke off for? It's like, no, we talk about his value because when he plays, he puts up numbers. It's just getting the minutes that is always the problem. And yesterday, for some reason, Nick Nurse just said, yeah, we're going minutes. Let's go. Let's look at some injury replacement players. Who are some guys who have got some short-term bumps? And some of those guys we've already talked about due to injuries. Number 1 on this list is Gary Trent. I am not a Gary Trent guy. I am not a Gary Trent fan from real-life perspective or a fantasy perspective. I think he is completely unreliable as a player and as a fantasy guy. But with Quickly out, he's going to get more opportunities to let us down, but also more opportunities to be better. He's only a points and threes guy. The steal numbers have dropped, but if you're a points and threes guy and you start to play 32 minutes instead of playing 24 minutes, well, then you have our attention. And while Quickly is out, I'm more interested in Trenner. I got Dosunmu on that list. I talked about Ayo already with Zach LaVine out and now Patrick Williams out. Really good injury replacement guy. Cam Whitmore. We've been burnt a couple of times by Whitmore. He's had opportunities and then he has huge games and then the next game he has the same opportunity and he does nothing. Jabari Smith is out. Tari next season is out as well. They both might be back this week and that might limit Whitmore. But honestly, Whitmore has shown enough to me that he needs to at least be a rotation player. And I don't know what this team does moving forward, honestly, because Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore are bloody good and they're just not going to play enough. So Whitmore is fine if Smith and Eason remain sidelined, but after that, it's going to be hard. I would like to hold to see how they use him, but I'm not really confident. The depressed penis, Sadiq Bey, as long as DeAndre Hunter is out, he's at least worth streaming. He is not a must-roster guy at all, but while Hunter is out, you can stream Bey in. You've got Nick Richards there, so just got to put him on the list, just so again, you know that even though it's jumped up, it's not high enough. And the last one is the big sneeze, Precious Achiuwa. 2 reasons. Isaiah Hartenstein played like 20 minutes last game in his return from the Achilles issue. I don't know how long the Achilles issue will last. I don't know how long this, whatever minutes limit is, will last. I've got no idea. Again, it remains curious to me that even when Hartenstein was out, we saw Jericho Sims play more minutes every game. And of course, when Hartenstein comes back, Sims plays 0 minutes because Tom Thibodeau. But the other thing is, and I talked about this with the Knicks a lot in the preseason, and I talked about it a lot even the other day, and I said they have no forwards whatsoever. And the common thing is, well, it doesn't matter because Randall plays 39 minutes a night and never gets hurt. Yeah, except he does. And he has the last 2 seasons, and he has at many points during his career. And now they are in a situation where they literally have no power forward. OG is going to have to start there. Or do they start Precious Achiuwa, who is horrible as a power forward? He's bad as a center, but he's horrible as a power forward. But they may have zero option but to do this. And if that means that Hartenstein is limited as a center because of the injury, and it means that Achiuwa gets the 12 minutes or so, or maybe even the 8 minutes or so that Anunoby doesn't play at power forward, that might be enough for him to accumulate some points and rebounds, the occasional steal on 40% finishing at the rim. Precious can put up some numbers. It's a frustrating experience, man, but they just literally, I don't think, have any choice but to get some minutes into him. With the Hartenstein scenario, now the Randall scenario, again, I would hate to play him at power forward, but they literally have no other choice. No other choice. Who are some other names that are worth us talking about? Did I put Lil Jon Concha on this list just so I could do a Lil Jon impression? Yeah! That didn't really come out. I wasn't guttural enough. Yeah! That's better. Jon Concha. He's the Nick Batum who just is a little bit better at the moment. I think Johnny, in a category league especially, is worth rostering. In a points league, it's deeper stuff, 14, 16. Categories 12s, it's there. He gets these random blocks, he gets assists, he gets steals, he gets rebounds. He'll never score, but the other stuff is all really important. I've got Andy Wiggins on this list because, again, Andy Wiggins has been a drop since week 2. Andy Wiggins right now is not a drop. Andy Wiggins is an ad because we change our assessment. When the man was running at the 350th best player for 12 weeks, you don't want to hold on to that because even though we might be playing well now, you're not in playoff contention having zeros on your roster for that long. But he's playing better. He started next to Kuminga. They did all right in that game. And if he starts to drop off again, we move on. But we go back and re-add Wiggins now, I think. Actually, it was probably an ad a couple of days ago. Same with Cam Thomas. I've talked about him a lot. And he was bad. And then last week, you could see the trend. And I highlighted this on this show. I said, the Nets reporters, there are so many Dutch rudders that they give. There's rusty trombones all over the place for Cam Thomas. Non-stop. But 3 days ago, it went from this level, like up here. And I said, that's really interesting. Why the hell is this happening? Why are they talking about Cam Thomas so much? I guarantee you he starts the next game. I didn't say guarantee. I said, I'm pretty sure he is going to start the next game. I've never seen this level of frothing coming from a reporter base about a single player. Something is happening here. So go and add and let's find out. And lo and behold, he started the next game. Now that was, I think, partly because Cam Johnson was out. And then he went in that start and scored 30 points and was pretty good. And like I've told you many times, when I hate to watch Cam Thomas play. I hate the way he plays. I think he was bad. But I also will acknowledge when I think he's improved, and I said that. I think he's improved many different areas. He's cut some of his usage in. His passing is better. He's trying more on defense. That's leading to more minutes and more production, so we've got to add him. That is how the world works. You can't sit here and say, well, I should never have dropped Cam Thomas in week 4 because in week 15 he's good. Well, that's not how the fantasy gets played. Honestly, it just isn't. And you will be and you can have those decisions all season long, but ebbs and flows, and we don't pay attention. This is who wants a sidebar? We've got a sidebar happening here because the way that fantasy was started from a basketball perspective in general was roto. Right? That is how fantasy was started. It was roto. And then head-to-head came later. And so many of the ways that we evaluate fantasy are through a roto lens, which, as you know, is like 5% of leagues, if that. But we talk so much about average rankings. We talk so much about average production. And that's all well and good. but it doesn't actually show you anything when a guy might be like 50th best, 50th, 300, 300, 300, 300, 300, 300, 300, 300, 40th. Oh, well, actually, look, he was actually 90th all season. Yeah, but that doesn't tell us anything. It's fine in Roto because at the end of a Roto season, if you rank as the 90th best player or the average per game, you're the 90th best player because that's how it works. If you're the 90th best player in head-to-head, did you oscillate between 70 and 100? Because you're a really valuable player. Did you oscillate between 40 and 350? Well, you're not a very good player. And those differences don't get articulated enough or described enough. That's why I'm going to do a lot more on this in the off-season. It's week-to-week, game-to-game variance, try and come up with some sort of metrics and values to be assigned to players so we have an understanding of what do these numbers actually mean versus like, well, he finished at this number this week or for this season, therefore he was that and we should never blah, blah, blah. Yeah? Sidebar done? I hope so. Fan of pants. Exactly like Harrison Barnes. Kevin Huerter's playing well. And while he's playing well, you ride the hot streak. And when he's cold, you dump his ass. That's an easy one. The last two are more upsidey ones. Jabari Walker. The minutes are strong for him. The production's up and down. That happens. I think he should be on a 12-team roster, Jabari. Especially with, I think he might even be on the injury report. But every one of their dickheads is on the injury report today in Portland. And the other one is Bilal Coulibaly, whose last two games have been like 30 minutes or close enough. I don't think there's quite enough for him to do to be a must-roster guy. But I'm intrigued to see those 23 minutes turn to 30. As a blocks and steals guy, maybe he's a stream guy. I would need to see probably 2 starters traded for Bilal to be a must-roster 12-teamer. But that can happen in the next 2 weeks, outside of Dan Gafford, of course. And I say outside of Dan Gafford because if Gafford gets traded, it doesn't in fact impact Coulibaly. But if it's Poole, if it's Kuzma, if it's Avdia, if it's Jones, all of those guys getting moved would impact Bilal. More usage, more ball handling, more minutes, all that stuff helps. So he's a little stashy. But again, people might ask me, they haven't actually asked me that much because I've said it enough. For this trade deadline coming up, I am not sitting here and going, you've got these mustache players. I don't really see it. There's no one that is standing out to me as a mustache guy at the deadline. But speaking of mustaches, Jordan Poole, like who knows what happens there. And then Bilal might step into a larger role. And that would be the one that I'm closest to. But even then, I'm not sure how high his upside actually ends up being. And that's the end of the Waiver Wire show. A passionate Waiver Wire show because I am, despite your thoughts, I am passionate about the NBA and fantasy basketball, and I always want us to be able to look at things through a objective lens and make things better. That's what I'm about, guys. You're gonna double bang? I really wish you would. Who doesn't love a double bang early on a Monday morning here for me? Thumb it up, notification bell, leave comments, and pre-bang, pre-like the trade deadline show, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.